Senator Santorum needs very little introduction. This is a guy that just a pinnacle and a great example of really how to do things, not only for his state, but at a national level. He stood up many times, he can tell you, and his record shows, against kind of the tides of change and in the winds of let's just do it the same way, the way we've been doing it. This is a guy that doesn't mind putting his neck out, not just for himself, but for others, and really speaking his mind. And that's what it comes down to. It's not just all about, well, I'm going to go to Washington and be a robot. Senator Santorum is just a great example of how to do it right. So I cannot thank him enough for coming to the great state of New Hampshire and seeing what we have to offer. I hope we see more of him again. But I really appreciate him coming over, and I wanted to spend a little time and talk to you guys a little bit about both what's happening nationally, as well as what he thinks what else we can do in the state. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. It is great to be here, and I just want to thank you all for being out here. I just think it's so wonderful as you travel around the country to see huge crowds of people who are committed, who are enthusiastic, people who recognize, that something really big has happened. And every place I go, whether it's here in New Hampshire, this is my third time here in the state in this year, or I was in Wyoming yesterday, and I was in Colorado at the end of last week, campaigning and working for candidates. The crowds are big everywhere. The enthusiasm is palpable because people realize something really big is at stake. And I wanted to come here for Chris in part because I know if he is a Sununu and has been raised by John and Nancy, he's going to be a good, strong conservative. And because I served with his brother, who candidly was a national tragedy when the people of New Hampshire did not re-elect John Sununu, in my opinion. And I say that at a time when I'm sitting here looking at the financial meltdown that occurred. And I served on the banking committee with John. And there was nobody in the country who was out there on top of things and knew what was happening before it happened and was trying to stop it with Fannie and Freddie and what was going on in the mortgage market than your senator. He was my leader. Even though he was junior to me on the committee, he understood it better than I did, candidly. And he led the way, and if the Congress and the Senate had listened to John, we would not have been in the situation that we're in right now. So I say... So if Chris is half as good,
I'm 60–70%, so I got you. I'm covered.
Then I figured, I'm going to come up here and speak for him because he'll be a great voice for fiscal conservatives here in the state of New Hampshire. And I know that while New Hampshire is still a great conservative state and got limited government up here, the threat is ever present. And we have a great opportunity, not just in this election here in New Hampshire with Chris and with the ticket of state Senate, state House candidates and your gubernatorial candidate, whoever that is. You have a tremendous opportunity to affect the country. You've got two House seats that are up here that we desperately need to win if we're going to take back the House of Representatives. You've got a Senate seat that we have to hold on to if we're going to do anything about getting close to the majority of the United States Senate. And let me tell you, we have a chance to get to the majority in the Senate. I would have never thought that 6 months ago, given the fact that there are actually more Republicans up for re-election this time than Democrats, even though we only have 41 Republicans in the Senate. We have an opportunity to actually take the Senate this year. And we can't do it if we lose one we have. And so I want to echo Chris' thought that this is really an important time for you to step up. It's a really important time for you to put a little extra in, to do a little bit more than you normally do, because this is a critical time. Chris talked about how his dad talked about the country's on a knife and a knife's edge, and we are. The reason the Tea Party people are out there, the reason the crowds are the biggest they've ever been, is because people know what's going on in Washington, D.C. They are trying to fundamentally change who we are as Americans. There's something, I always talk about when my dad came to this country, my grandfather that came to this country. They didn't come to this country because of what the government was going to give them. My grandfather came here in 1925. My dad came here in 1930. And I can tell you, because I've talked to them, they came here because of what America promised them, which was opportunity. They didn't promise them guaranteed this or guaranteed that, or we take care of this, or they promised them freedom and opportunity. to take care of their families, to raise their children, to practice their faith, and to dream big dreams and to try to live them. That is what America has always stood for. That our rights come from God, and the government is there in a limited capacity to protect those rights and to keep us safe from those who want to harm us and want to destroy us. That formula has worked incredibly well. It's changed the world. It changed the world. And that formula is teetering on a knife's edge because of what this president, and frankly, what prior Congresses slowly were moving toward. This president put the foot on the accelerator and did the one thing that will flip this country, and that was this health care. Because with this health care bill, now, if you want care, you've got to ask the federal government for your care. You're going to now be looking to the federal government to provide for you. I always liken it to public education, or should I say government-run education. When government took over the education of our children, what they did was create a direct pipeline to your wallet. And what's happened? We have, by all accounts, the worst public education system in the Western world. Our children are in every category down at the bottom except one. And that's how they feel about themselves. They're very high in how they feel about themselves. But in every other category, they're down at the bottom. Government-run schools. Yet, the amount of money that they can go to you and ask you for is almost endless. Referendums almost never pass on anything else when it comes to increasing taxes except for education. Why? Because they got you. Because if you're the average American, you have no choice. If you want your kids to get ahead, you need to have good public schools, and if they say we need more money or your children can't get X, Y, and Z, you just open up your wallet. When I say you, I mean the American people. And so we have one of the most expensive education systems in America that is one of the worst performing. Now apply that principle to health. They have a direct pipeline now to your pocket, and imagine the federal government, as you can, because it's happened in Western Europe, with a direct pipeline to say, if you want that diagnostic test, if you want to be treated, if you don't want us to ration care, if you don't want this and that, then we need more money. The era of limited government is over today. It's done, unless we repeal this bill. I can't say it in any more stark terms. It is over. Every other country that has passed socialized medicine, and that's what this is, has ended up the way of the European democracies. I remind everybody that 100 years ago, the sun never set on the British Empire. It was the world power. And then they lost their edge and began to look in passing big socialized programs. And pretty soon they couldn't afford their military, they couldn't afford their possessions, and eventually they crumbled, and now, anybody think of as Britain that they're leading the world? No. Everyone sort of thinks that America is the greatest country in the history of the world, and so we'll stay that way. Where is that written? Where is that preordained? It only happens if free people, every day, fight for freedom. And I would make the argument that this election is at its core a chance to regain our freedom. Now, this sounds like a pretty dire prognostication, almost a pessimistic. I think just the opposite. I look at this opportunity as being the greatest blessing that could be bestowed upon any of us. Why? Because you have a chance to do something great for your country. You don't have to put on a uniform to do it. You don't have to travel across an ocean to do it. You just have to, in your own community, during this election, you have to do extraordinary things. That's the greatness of this opportunity. That's why I have 7 children at home. I'm not getting paid to run in 25 states in the last 6 months. I'm running around because I know how important this election is. You all know how important. Everybody, I mean, America realizes how significant this moment in history is.